perfect. See, like. Dom, how you going? Oh, yep, yep, yep. Oh, perfect. How good. Nah, that's great. That's great. Awesome. Thanks for that, buddy. Thank you. I'm just sitting up here in the commentary box now at Cirque, so there we go. Mate, I'm everywhere today. I've started in Sydney and I'm out here now. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shaw Regatta. We have the school Year 10 4th 8 coming down the track at the moment. We have only 2 starters, with the St Joseph's crew failing to make the start line. In lane 5 we have Shaw, and in lane 6 we have St Ignatius. Crews have advanced through to the past the 1,000 metre mark, coming into the final 1,500 now, and it looks like we have Riverview with a sound lead here, looking very strong in the water. Just waiting for the Shaw crew to come over the 1,500 to get the right margin. They've got a lead of just over 10 seconds going into the final 500. Both crews enjoying that rare opportunity to have a 2-lane, 2-horse race here at Cirque. Doesn't happen very often. You can see both crews coming through the last 500 now. Rate is coming up, beat is coming up. Timing very well in the Riverview crew. Outstanding. That Riverview crew is Felix Brown in the bow seat, Caelan Strudwick in 2, Jamie McRae in 3, John Malone in 4, Freddie O'Halloran in 5, Marshall Devlin in 6, Angus Lund in 7, Jacob Collins in stroke. Teddy Hardy is the cox, and they're coached by Luke Bannerman. And most certainly, Coach Bannerman will be very happy to see his crew come down here. Great form, nice and flat, looking brilliant. They're just starting to open up a little bit more of a lead there as they move in their final sprint to the line. And it will be a win to Riverview. The Shaw boys coming over the final 250 now, last few strokes. Doing well to hold it together. A lot of these boys are in their early part of their rowing careers. Oh, a little bit of a loose stroke there in the last section, but they've just crossed the line now. Well done to Shaw. That Shaw boat was Ian Yip, Jude Jansen, Christian Zielinski, Hugo Ahmed, Dan Warwork, Ted Sheedy, Henry Roxburgh, Hamish Parry Oakton, and coxed by Tom Mann. We are underway in the Year 10 third 8 now. In lane 8, we have the Shaw crew. In lane 7, St Joseph's. Lane 6, the crew from Scott's. Lane 5, the crew from King's. Lane 4, the Review boat. And in lane 3, the Sydney Grammar crew. Now, they've come through the first 500, and it would look like Shaw are out in the lead. Just narrowly over the St Ignatius crew. I think we might see a few good battles between these two schools today. They're just 1 second in the lead there. Scott's coming in 3rd place at the moment. City Grammar in 4th. Joey's in 5th. And King's in 6th position. Now, it's not all unusual to see leads change and swing through the middle 1,000. We'll see where these crews are lining up now. Review still holding their lead, probably just holding the same margin, just over a second to the Review crew. So this should turn to be a nice battle through that middle 1,000 here. Coming in 3rd still there is the crew from Scott's. They're about 10 seconds back from the leading crew of Shaw. Sydney Grammar have improved their position to sort of edge just slightly in front of St Joseph's. And in that 6th position, we have the King's crew. This will be a very interesting race through this third 5. Obviously the championship 500 here that will dictate the final placings. Very impressive form there by the stroke. Will Hadfield, he's been impressing of late in the training sessions down on the Parramatta River. The crew's looking very strong in the water. We'll just see if they've had enough there through that 500 to maintain their position. They're not too far away from that marker now. This is going to be a very tight race, I believe, between Riverview and the Shaw crew. It's very hard when you're racing on the other side, that far away from each other as well, to get a true gauge on where they are at and where you are within the race as well. We've got Riverview crossing the 1500 metre mark in first. That lead has swung. That's a 2-second swing there through that third 500. So it'll be very interesting to see if the Shaw boys can now respond. These two crews have had some great races over the last few regattas, with the Shaw boat taking some of the early victories in the season. And now we see the St Ignatius crew in the last 2 regattas pushing forward. And the Scots are still sitting in 3rd place. Definitely looking like 2 races within the one here, with Review and Shaw obviously having an eye on each other and looking for that to continue that rivalry through this year. We have Scots in 3rd, Grammar in 4th, Joey's in 5th, and Kings in the 6th position there. But this is going to be a tight finish here, but it looks like Review is showing probably the better form through the last 250 here. And very strong in the water. Their rate is up. Rate is probably a little bit higher than the Shaw crew as well, as they enter that Red Buoy area. Looking very strong in the water. It's going to be a win to Riverview, as they cross the line. The crew of Zia Foster, Jack Matthews, Sydney McCosker, Nicholas Clock, Iggy Jenkins, Jack Edwards, Xavier Kennedy, Theodore Hennessy, Scotch O'Connor as the coxswain, coached by Timothy Seacole. They've done a fantastic job over the Shaw crew there in the final 500 metres. Here we have Scots coming into 3rd position. And a very tight race emerging between Sydney Grammar and Joey's here for the coveted 4th spot. But it looks like it might be Joey's just about a 1/3 of a length ahead here, roughly a second. And that is 4th to Joey's, 5th to Grammar. And we have the Kings crew in 6th position. Well and truly into this race now, with the Year 10 second 8. Lane 2 being Riverview. Lane 3, Sydney Grammar. Lane 4, the King's School. Lane 5, Shaw. Lane 6, Newington. Lane 7, Sydney Boys High. Lane 8, St Joseph's. And Lane 9, Scots. Now we're roughly at the 1,000 metre mark here, and again we're seeing a very familiar sign with Review and Shaw. And Scott's as well coming up into positions here. So it's Review over the line first. Then we have the Shaw crew, 1.9 seconds behind. Then Scott's just 0.38 behind. So this is a brilliant little race, but developing over the first K in the year 10, second 8. This race is well and truly into the third 500. This Declan Glendinning coached second year 10-8 from Shaw is looking very strong in the water, but they're going to have their work to do here over the second stage of this race if they're going to get over the Riverview combination. Both, again, these crews have had some great stoushes through the season. Be interested to see how this one plays out. As they come over the final 500 metres here, as they enter the final 500, Review have built that lead to almost a boat length. Just in contact is the Shaw crew, and it'll be interesting to see if they have a big push here through the final 500 to close that gap down. Review showing great form through the first 1500. Shaw are starting to lift now, looking to respond. Be very interested to see how this race plays out here now over the final 300 metres. Both crews heading in towards the Red Buoy area, obviously the final 250 metres, which usually sees a bit of a push and a bit of a lift in rate. We have Scott's and Joey's on this side of the course as well. Scott's looking very strong as they try to push away from the St Joseph's crew. Does look like Review have got the hard work done here. Shaw trying to fight back. We'll see how this plays out, but it looks like it is going to be a win to the Review school, to St Ignatius. And that margin stays the same. We have Review in first, second Shaw, third the school from Scott's. Fourth position, the Kings combination. Fifth, the St Joseph's combination. And an interesting little battle developing between Newington and Grammar here, but it looks like Newington have done the work here to push away from Grammar in the final 250 metres. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the Year 10 first 8 halfway down the course at the moment. It looks like it's another battle emerging between Review and Shaw, although this time Review have got a little bit more of a lead coming into that second thousand, start of the second thousand. It would look like they've just opened up Clearwater on Shaw, and then coming in, well, the results at the moment have Sydney Boys High in third and Kings in fourth. We'll see if that is the case as things progress here. Obviously, a big thank you to our volunteers today who are helping in the timing huts. That can be quite a confusing process sometimes, where there's lots of different buttons to press at various stages. So hopefully they're getting it all accurately. I've been told it's all working well. You can see that Review crew stretching out a little bit now. They're looking very strong through the third 500. That's obviously one of the harder 500s for these young rowers to do. This is their first year of rowing 2K, and getting used to, I guess, the way a race pans out is quite a hard thing at times. Review coming over the 1500 metre mark, looking very strong, 440 to the 15. In second place would be the crew from Scots, third St Joseph's, fourth Kings, and fifth Shaw. So a little bit of a swing in the results there, with Shaw sitting in second place to that point. So that was a very tough 500 there for the boys from North Sydney. It looks like we have Review striding ahead here, looking very strong. Rate of striking's coming up again as they cross into that final 250 metres here. Very tight field for the other places. Second, third, fourth, you can throw a blanket over it, but it does look like at this stage maybe Kings has pushed through, or Scots have pushed through as well into that second position, but there is not much in it. This could go any way for the minor placings, but Review have done the hard work to this point. And they are dictating the pace. But it looks like the Scots crew on the outside there is starting to show some pretty good form. Very tight race. The crowd is getting involved here now. The grandstand's getting a little on the edge of their seat. Here comes Review, looking very strong through this race. Doing a very good job through that final 50 metres. It looks like Scots have just done enough there to push out in front of St Joseph's. Kings are trying to respond as well, so is Shaw and Newington. This is a very tight field. There's a win to Review. Second place to Scots. Well done, Scots. Third to St Joseph's. Fourth, Kings. Fifth, Shaw. And in sixth position, Newington College. Very tight race, very tight race. Sydney Grammar coming over the line now in seventh, and it'll go back to Sydney Boys High in eighth position. That was a very exciting race indeed, very tight, and that's going to be one of the races to watch as the season pans out. Well done to the Sydney Boys High crew coming across the line now. So that was a win to St Ignatius. That's Arthur Roach, Charles Holt, Hunter Harris, Hudson Shaw, Charlie Chenine, Charlie O'Halloran, Xavier Dynan, Max Gordon Twaddle, and Dax Cooley the Cox, coached by Hamish McDonald. And if my memory serves me correctly, Hamish was an ex-Joey's boy, so he has jumped from Tarban Creek to the Lane Cove River of recent years. We have a start in the Schoolboy third 8 race here now. Those crews are already through to the first 500 metres. We have, again, Review leading out with Shaw in second place. Actually bookended by two Review crews, Review 1 leading and Review 2 in third position. St Joseph's in fourth, Sydney Boys High 1 in fifth through the first 5, Kings in sixth, and Sydney Boys High 2 in seventh. So, really encouraging numbers we can see there for Sydney Boys High. Rowing is, sport obviously not being compulsory. But we see great culture within that boat shed to get such great numbers coming down to try their hand at rowing. Fantastic. We can see here on the live feed there, coming through that middle stage of the race, we are sitting behind the St Joseph's crew, looking very strong in the water there. But we can see Review 1 leading out with Shaw in second place, just 5 seconds back, so it's about a length and a half in second position. They'll need to make sure they're working well to hold off a very determined St Joseph's crew in third place there. Obviously our hometown bias being the Shaw Regatta, we want to see Shaw push through. It should be an exciting race over this second stage. We are through that third 500 now. We can see Review out in front. Again, we've just seen this all day so far, that strong rhythm holding the boys well through the third 500. We go across to the Shaw crew, who seem to be still holding down second place.
Yeah, good, yourself? Man, I'm just up on the commentary box, actually, of all things. Yep. Okay. Yep. Perfect, perfect. That's fine. Can you, is that going to be done on the, are you going to do that on the board? Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, that's fine. There's fixtures dropping off left, right, and centre. Cool. Yeah, no worries. No problems. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
We're just coming down to the final stage. As you can see, all the sport in Sydney is starting to get called off as those, fair weather cricketers can't handle a little bit of rain. But doesn't affect the rowing out here, and it most certainly isn't affecting Review out in the lead. Looking very strong as they come across that final 250. A little push there from the Shaw boat. Sam Advani, Alec Eldershaw, Henry Johnson, Hugh Riley, Benji Penner, Gus Pritchard, Michael Hocking, Jack Butcher, and Henry Johnson, I believe, is coxing that crew in this first race today as well. But we have the Review boat looking very good as they come across the line. Tommy Burton, Alexander, Raymond Nash, Ben Walker, Jack Whiteson, Charlie Forshaw, Ollie Tucker, Patrick Cleary, Max Remus, Charlie Vecchio, coached by David Hogan. The Shaw boat finishing in second place. Nice tight finish here for third between Joey's and Review 2, but it will be Review 2 that crosses the line. Then Joey's in fourth. And we go back to the Kings combination, back to the two, and then back to the two Sydney High combos. We're getting close to a start in the 4-4 now. In your program, you will notice that they're a slightly different set of races now. We have consolidated the 4-4 into one. And to cover the senior racing, I'm going to pass you over to Henry Oxenham, who was an ex-head boy of Shaw and quite often enjoys talking out loud.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bates, for the introduction. Now we have the Schoolboy 4th jumping. The crews in this race in lane 2, Newington, Aaron Koo, Henry Morris, Connor Power, Arnold Lee, and Cox by Ethan Gregor. Scots 1, Tennyson Bors, Jason Jang, Nick Phillips, Finn Simpson, Jordan Dubov as the coxswain. Kings 1, Archie Farah, Angus Purdy, Will Ralph, Lockie Arentz, Cox by Arjun Trivedi. St Ignatius 1, Thomas Ball, Hugh McWilliam, Ralph Tui, William Brown, Cox by Thomas Brednam. St Joseph's, Fletcher Grenville, Vincent McAllister, Nicholas Campy, Samuel Lonigan, Cox by Cooper Watkins. Shaw, Campbell Binney, Henry Smythe, Harry Fuses, Peter Komonakis, Cox by Eddie Brooks. Scots 2, Will Netting, Anton James Lotfi, Marcus Lamb, Jack Shannon, Cox by Sam Marott. And Sydney Boys High, rounding out the field, Ryan Allen, Casper Lai, Clyde Wang, Josh Kimpton, Advaith Nair is the coxswain there. And as we come through the 500, it looks like Shaw have the lead here, just over St Ignatius, and then back to St Joseph's, followed by Kings, Scots, both Scots crews, Boys High and Newington at the back end of the field there. Looks like we've got a little bit of rain coming through the bottom of the course there, so it'll be challenging conditions for these crews, but fairly flat water, so we might see some fast times here. As you can see, Shaw coming through at 1:38 through the 500 is a pretty strong time for a 4th fall. Looks like there's potentially a bit of a tailwind coming through the crews here, helping them through this second 500 metres of the race, where it looks like Riverview are setting up a nice rhythm there. Now, it sometimes can be tougher for these crews with a strong tailwind to keep balance in their boat, so it'll be a challenge for all crews testing their blade work here as they roll through the 1K of this race. Looks to be a tight tussle between Shaw and Riverview here. As we come through the 1K, looks like Riverview have just come through Shaw there. 3:20 back to Shaw by a second. Be a tight tussle as they come through the last 1K here, especially with that tailwind and challenging conditions there. Then it's back to St Joseph's and Kings. There's a bit of a gap between first and second and the rest of the field at the moment. Will be a tight tussle for third as Scots come through in 5th there. So on your screen now, the top 3 crews, Shaw, Riverview, St Joseph's. And the last couple of crews coming through the 1K there, we've got Scots 2, Sydney Boys High and Newington. Looks to be a tight tussle at the back of the field there. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Tight racing here as we look to head through the 1,500 metres. Shaw and Riverview out front. They'll be looking to maintain length and drive phase through this. There'll often be a few pushes coming through that part of the race, so we might see some faster splits as we come through here, especially with that tailwind. Well, it's a tight race through here. It looks like Riverview may have just got Shaw. Yep, and they've opened right up on them there as they come through the 1,500. Just a strong middle K from Riverview really to be able to come through Shaw and be able to extend that lead now to clear water back to Shaw as they come through in 5:03. Shaw through 4 seconds later. So they've opened that up to over a boat length now as we look to come through the last 500 metres here. Shaw with a lot of work to do if they want to pit this race. Back to Kings and then St Joseph. So Kings have come through. Joey's there in a strong tussle, so that fight for third is going to be tight. Joey's maybe with a little bit more top end speed. We'll see as they come through the last 500 here. Back to Scots in 5th. And these tailwinds are making for fast racing conditions here. It should be strong times through these fours. It'll be interesting to see if Riverview can hold offshore, and at the moment it looks like they will be able to do just that. The battle for third is going to be tight between Kings and Joey's. It looks like at the moment the Kings are just holding ahead, sitting right back onto it through there. And Riverview have just really opened up the field, sitting long and strong, able to drive that boat through. Shaw trying to crank the rate, but looks like they've left themselves too much too late here as Riverview open up on the field. Should be Riverview through in first. And again, looks like Kings have just opened up on that St. Joseph's crew. Should be a tight battle here for third, though. It looks like Joey's are bringing their rate of striking up, trying to drive more through the water. But as we come through the finish here, this Riverview crew looking nice and strong. Should be a quick time in quick conditions out here. For a Schoolboy 4th 4, Riverview through in 6:42. Back to Shaw in second. And it looks like Kings are holding off Joey's here for third. Joey's throwing everything at them, but Kings just able to hold them off. Shaw through in second there. Yeah, Kings will hold them off there. Kings third, St. Joseph's fourth. Back to Scott's 1 in fifth. There's a little bit of a tussle here at the back of the field between Newington, Sydney Boys High, and that Scott's 2 crew. So it looks like Scott's 2 currently have the lead, but Sydney Boys High and Newington will be an interesting tussle to see who comes out on top. Looks like potentially Newington are just ahead at the moment. Down the other end of the course, we have the 3rd 4s coming down racing as the 4th 4s finish off here. Scott's 2, and it'll be tight between Newington and Sydney Boys High. School 3rd 4, lane 2, Shaw, Xavier Coker, Xavier Duvernay, Ollie Mott, Harrison Frape, Cox by Austin Anderson. Lane 3, Kings, Nicholas Walsh, Massimo Fitzsimmons, Jock McGrath, Charlie Jones, Cox by Oliver Forrester. St. Ignatius, Oliver Eisenhower, Archie Love, Sam Barry, Henry McRae, Cox by Sam Keane. Scots, Teddy Alvarez Garcia, Eric Johansson, Thomas Irvin, Hugo Duplessis, Ardashir Chan is the coxswain. Newington lane 6, Jeremy Cooper, Sam Haley, Connor Hunter, Aidan Evans and Dylan Henry is the cox of that crew. Lane 7, Sydney Grammar, Dashel Huang, Roderick Shen, Marcus Shipway, Maximilian McKnight, cox by Charles Castaldi. Lane 8, Sydney Boys High, Nesta Chan, Sabra Prab, Aaron Chan, Delbert Zoe and cox by Jasper Zhang. And lane 9, St. Joseph's, Fletcher Stephen, Finn Clare, Thomas Smythe, Connor Hopkins and Cooper Chan is the cox there. And as we've come through the 1K there in that race, it is Riverview back to Shaw, back to Kings in 3rd there. It's a tussle here, Scott's through to Joey's. Should be interesting, fast conditions again for the crews here, so the balance of the boat is extremely important. Able to make sure that they can sit it up as Newington come through in 6th there. With Sydney Boys High riding out the field through the 1K. But it is the race leaders Riverview at the moment that look to be dealing with these conditions the best. There's a little bit of rain at the top end of the course, rowing a nice long stroke, well driven. As you can see today, the Strength of Riverview program has really been on show. They've beaten, I think they've won every single race so far. Looks like they're able to just deal with these challenging conditions and sit through in that tailwind. And it's been the theme of today where Riverview have really used that middle K to just sit tall and row long and move through the field in cases and sometimes extend their lead on the field as well. And it looks to be the same story playing out here in the Schoolboy 3rd 4. As Riverview come through the field, they're coming through 1,500 metre in about 5 minutes there. Back to Shaw in 2nd, as has also been the story of the day so far. Back to Kings in 3rd. Scott's in 4th. St Joseph's in 5th. Newington in 6th. And it will be the Sydney Boys High crew coming through the 1500 that will round out the field there. But as you can see, fast times from the crews today. Schoolboy 3rd 4, not much difference between the 4th 4 and 3rd 4 times so far. So it looks to be Shaw trying to make a push, bringing that rate of striking up nice and high, trying to push Riverview as much as they can. Look to be a point or two higher. Again, in the tailwind, it's challenging if you're bringing that rate up to maintain balance in the boat. But it looks to be Shaw giving it their all on the far side of the course, but I think they might have left themselves too much to do as Riverview sit out in front. Nice and long. They've just brought their rate of striking up through there, and it looks like Shaw will finish in 2nd. I don't think they'll be able to get through to that Riverview crew. Scots are making a late charge here, trying to row through Kings to finish in that 3rd position, end up on the podium, but it looks again like they might have left themselves too much to do too late. But yes, it will be the Riverview 3rd 4 winning the 3rd 4 division, coming through the line in a time of 6:45. And back to Shaw in 2nd. And despite the fast finishing Scots, it looks like Kings will hold on for 3rd. Scots through in 4th. And Joey's and Newington in a tussle at the back of the field here. Coming through for 5th. It looks like Joey's may just have them on the line. And they do too. They end up winning by about a canvas over Newington there. And we are down to the Schoolboy 2nd 4 down the course. It looks like they are close to the 1 kilometre mark. In that field, the Schoolboy 2nd 4 is St Ignatius in lane 2, Sydney Roche, Thomas Tancred, Benjamin Eisenhower, James Davis, Cox by Zach Burton. Kings, Max McGraw, Lachlan Cable, Hugo Yates, Sam Watt, Cox by Digby Norton Knight. Scots, Conrad Lowe, Jasper Tousell, Hudson Meek, Ben Vaughan, Angus Fletcher is the coxswain there. Newington, Joshua Cronin, Andrew Cominos, Tom Perrottet, Ashton Tulpin, Cox by Noah Clayton. St Joseph's, Ari Greach, Julius Lum, Thomas Seve, Marco Farnese, Darcy Willis is the cox there, and then Shaw in lane 7. Charlie Glancy, Rupert Forrester, Ryan Doherty, Ed McDonald, Cox by Alex Golban. And as those crews have come through the 1K, it looks like the Riverview crew is out in front, closely followed by Shaw again. Looks to be challengers over there next to Riverview in Kings. Should be a tight tussle there. And the field is quite condensed here, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 1,000 metres. See if Riverview can replicate what they've been doing all day and rowing a nice long middle K. We've got the final finishers coming through the finish line here in the Schoolboy 3rd 4 race, which is the Sydney Grammar crew. As you can see on your screen, the times for the 2nd 4, Riverview out in front, back to Shaw about 2 seconds, and then back to Kings again about 2 seconds. So should be a tight tussle. Let's see if Riverview can open up that lead or if Shaw or Kings can close that gap. Again, a bit of rain down at the start line. It looks like these crews have had to deal with a fair bit of challenging conditions out there. Wet all handles and a strong tailwind can be challenging for these crews sometimes. As we come through the 1500 here, it looks like that Riverview crew is managing to stay out in front. It's tight though. I feel like Shaw have closed the gap there. Oh, Shaw have gone through them. Shaw finished 1500 just in front. Riverview closely in 2nd there. Kings and St Joseph's back in 3rd and 4th. Scots in 5th, Newington in 6th. And it looks like that Shaw crew has made a real push there to try and come through this Riverview crew. On opposite sides of the course, so it will be a challenge for the coxswains to make sure that they keep tabs on the other crews and the rest of the field. Again, strong tailwind conditions, so this Shaw 4 is really trying to sit back on it, try and push through Riverview. Looks like Riverview are responding here on the far side of the course. Rate of striking appears to come up in both crews as they crank towards the finish line. And it does look incredibly tight here between the Shaw and Riverview 2nd 4s in the Schoolboy division. Looks like Kings are making an entry into the charge as well on the far side there, near Riverview, just pushing them, seeing what they can get out of this race. Looks like they've definitely got in front of Joey's, and they'll be looking to make a charge on the leaders in the field here. Strong tailwind conditions, Riverview driving through, trying to hold on to that lead that they had through the middle K of the race, but Shaw have pushed them through here. And it looks to be tight. I think this Shaw crew may just have the lead on this Riverview crew. This is great racing from Shaw. Looks like they've come from behind through the 1K to push all the way through, reversing the trends of what's happened today. Shaw out in front. And Shaw take out the second 4 division. Followed back by Riverview. Then back to Kings, St. Joseph's. Newington and Scots should finish there in the second 4. That's some great racing from the boys in the Shaw crew there. Determined to win their home regatta. And they've managed to come through Riverview and reverse the trends of today through that last 1 kilometre of the race. We should be moving now on to the Schoolboy first 4. The crews in this race, as it looks again to be quite wet up the top of the course there. This crews here, lane 1, St. Joseph's, Jed Holgate, George Graham, Thomas Foster, Angus Four, Cox by Zachary Taylor. Shaw in lane 2, Chris Ewan, Taj Robson, Braden McDonald, Will Reid, Cox by Seb Cheers. Lane 3, Sydney Boys High, Leewin Dang, Benjamin Chan, Aylin Tang, Jaden Tan, James Hu is the Cox. Lane 4, Scots, William Porter, Rocco Rossi, James Dunbar, John Hu, Kim, and John Maloof. Lane 5, Newington, Oscar Wong, Rocco McDonald, Rory Begg, Nicholas Softus, and Hugo Lonigan coxing that. Lane 6, St. Ignatius, Babbage Hockey, Luke Delaney, Harry Walker, Angus Field, coxed by Nicholas Coolbert. Lane 7, Sydney Grammar, Matthew Sanderson, Jade Narov, Oliver Keller, Raphael McNeil Champion, coxed by Henry Comanos. Another Sydney Grammar crew in lane 8, Atticus Lee, Jackson Woolham, Devlin Hoyne, Alexander Randall and Liam Barr. Lane 9, Kings, Campbell Whalen, Patrick Yee, Henry Harvey, Jack Webster, Keishan J. Sura is the Cox. And as these crews are coming through the 750, it looks to be, again, a tussle between Shaw and Riverview, with that Kings crew strongly pushing both those crews. It's been a persistent tailwind through these 4s racing, so there has been some quick times. Oh, pardon me, it looks like Kings are in second, back to Shaw in third. Is the top of the field, and then back to St. Joseph's, Scots, Newington, Boys High, and then both Sydney Grammar crews rounding out the back of the field. Again, just challenging for the Coxtons if they're not exactly near the crews that they are trying to be pushed by. So it takes quite a bit of skill to be able to keep your boys motivated and make sure that they are pushing along. But it is Ignatius through the 1K, 3:15, ahead of the field. Shaw and Kings in a tight tussle for second there. Will be interesting to see how that plays out over the next K. Then back to St. Joseph's in 4th, Scots in 5th, Newington in 6th, Sydney Boys High in 7th, and then back to both Grammar crews in 8th and 9th. Can be challenging moving these small boats along the course, especially with strong tailwind conditions sometimes, as you're often rowing sometimes up to a minute longer than some of the 8s crews. So a bit more endurance and fitness required sometimes for these 4s races. As that Shaw crew on the far side tries to push the Riverview crew that's out in front, but as far as it looks to be Riverview hanging on to the lead. Kings and Shaw again in that tussle for second. It'll be interesting to see what the times are as they come through the 1500 here. Well and truly in front is that crew from St. Ignatius, the men from Riverview, out in front, through the 1500 in 4:58. Back to Shaw in second, who've really opened up on Kings through that third 500 metres. Kings back in third. St. Joseph's on the far side in fourth. Looks to be that Scott's crew trying to make a push on that St. Joseph's crew as they come through the 1500. Trying to make a crank towards the finish here. So Newington come through in sixth. Sydney Boys High in seventh, and then the two Grammar crews will round out the field. But it's the crew from St. Ignatius that looks to be opening up on the field. Should be holding off the crews that are trying to finish fast here. It will be a tussle between Shaw and Kings for second. And the Scots are trying to enter the foray with that St. Joseph's crew on the far side for fourth position. That St. Ignatius crew looking long, looking strong. Avenging what happened in the second four and maintaining the course of the day, which has been St. Ignatius in first. And it looks to be that way at the moment. Kings and Shaw on opposite sides of the course here. Will be interesting push for second place, but looks like Shaw have just increased their rate of striking as they come through the last 100 metres here of the course, pushing hard on this Riverview crew. Trying to make something happen as they come through this last back end of the race. Inside the last 50, but it looks like Riverview will hold them off for an excellent first place finish in the Schoolboy first four with a time of 6:40. Shaw will come through in second. Kings come through in third, and Shaw showed excellent maturity to be able to push off that Kings crew through that middle K. Scots come through in fourth. St. Joseph's in fifth. And they made an excellent push, that Scots crew, through that last 500 to really go through that St. Joseph's crew and open up what ended up being almost a length of field. Back to Newington in sixth. And then Sydney Boys High and Sydney Grammar rounding out the field. We now open up to the Schoolboy second eight. The crews in this lane two, Sydney Boys High. Ethan He, George Mermilus, Jetsu Liu, Lloyd Zhang, Leon Liu, Ty Trainer, Benjamin Dang, and Lyndon Chow, coxed by Lucas Wang. Lane 3, St. Joseph, Samuel Spork, Tate Fredrickson, Jackson Gordon, Edward Reinhardt, Henry Campbell, Rocco Densley, Raphael Cossins, Lexington Spies, and coxed by Noah Bella Antonio. Lane 4, St. Ignatius, Lachlan Dennis, Matthew Beeman, Banjo Metcalf, Edward Bateman, Thomas McClintock, Boston Kirby, Harrison Pollan, Jack Hare, and coxed by Ryan McNulty. Lane 5, Sydney Grammar, Yul Hyo, Benjamin Lee, Jeremy Court, Diamond Leonard, Will Armstrong, David Walsh, Thomas Kim, Christopher Wu, coxed by Edward Lau. Shaw, Lane 6, Austin Hamilton, Mike Minchin, Alex Rogan, Lachlan McIntosh, Ollie Kosh, Matt Juretta, Alistair Curry, Liam Kennedy, coxed by Oscar Miller. Lane 7, Scots, Edward Green, Charles White, Charles Carmody, George Little, Noah Perry, Hugh Anderson, Max Prout, Hugo Danpon Long, and Zach Sperring coxing that crew. Kings, Lane 8, Prem Siva Gangalaban, Harry Irving, Oscar Parsons, Jeremy Blatchford, Denver Purdon, Dave King, Charlie Camilleri, Jay Dwight, and coxed by Troy Graham. And Newington rounding out the field in Lane 9, Will Gillespie Penny, William Chanter, Ollie Stelmacher, Rowan Costathan, Jed Robertson, Silas Allen, Nick Byrne, and Mitchell Smith, and coxed by Lachlan Ha. As we come through the 1K here for the Schoolboy second eight, it looks to be Shaw in the lead, followed closely by St. Joseph's, then back to St. Ignatius, Scots, Kings, Newington, and Sydney Grammar and Sydney Boys High. The St. Joseph's eights have really showed a strong showing in the second half of the season. They've come through the field and they're pushing for the major placings in both the second and the first eight. And the Shaw crew, who were dominant through the first half of the season, again showing that they have what it takes to be with the top of the field here in the Schoolboys second eight division. Fast conditions still out there. The tailwind has died down a little bit, and it looks like the rain has held off a little bit as well, so it should be fairly flat for these crews. good racing conditions, I would suggest, with temperature not too warm outside. And it looks like the St. Joseph's crew and the Shaw crew in a good tussle up there. I think St. Joseph's may have come through the Shaw crew. We'll get a look here as we come through the 1500. It is tight racing, and both crews look like they're rowing nice, long, direct strokes. And it's a tight tussle there, but Shaw have managed to hold their lead. Back to St. Joseph's. 4:26 through the 1500 is good times for the second 8. And it's back to St. Ignatius in third. So it looks to be a race for 1-2. Riverview should have 3 wrapped up, and then fourth is going to be a tight tussle between the Scots, Kings, and Newington crews there. Back to Sydney Grammar, and then we'll be back to Sydney Boys High on the far side. And we're coming through the final 500 metres here. It looks to be a tight race. St. Joseph's just asking for a bit more from their crew, seeing what they can manage to close the gap on Shaw here. Shaw again have just increased their rate of striking slightly, making it a tight tussle between these two crews. It'll be interesting. St. Joseph's and Shaw out in front. Form crews of the division. St. Joseph's rowing the Empacker, Shaw rowing the Hudson. It's a tight tussle as they roll through here. Shaw have to try and hang on to something. It looks like St. Joseph's are pushing them hard. They may have potentially come through them here. We'll get a better look at this as we straighten up. This is tight racing. I can't call this. I can't tell you as their nose in front. Looks like potentially St. Joseph's, maybe Shaw. Both crews up high, rating high, striking through the finish. This is going to be tough to call. It's going to be on the nose. It looks like St. Joseph's might have them, and St. Joseph's do by about half a canvas. Oh, it's tight. It's very tight. It's a photo finish. Jeez, it looks like Shaw just had the surge. They had the stroke that came through, made it close, and back to Riverview in third. And again, that tussle for fourth is going to be tight here. This is also potentially a photo. No, it should be Newington, and then Scots, and then Kings. Out across the field to Sydney Grammar and Sydney Boys High. And it looks like the Schoolboy first 8 has set off down the course. The premier event of the rowing calendar. One that many schools take a lot of pride in. The field for this one, lane 2, Scots, Maxwell Crawford, Thomas Tyson, Hamish Marr, Dean Lowe, Henry Marion, Thomas Beck, Oliver Milling, Max Berkelow, Cox by Charlie Cameron. Newington, Lewin Whitaker, Lucas van der Westhuizen, Tristan McDonald, Jasper Pattinson, Charles Olds, Nicholas Trethui, Hugh Jones, Nico Calantio and Hugo Baker coxing that crew. Lane 4, St. Ignatius, Harry Christie, Oliver Taylor, Thomas Roche, William Bryant, Hugo Brown, Julian Cart, Noah Coble, Hamish Walker, coxed by James Stack. Kings in lane 5, Nicholas Plattis, Sam McLean, Duke Millwood, Jack Hall, Hamish Matthews, Lockie Tyndall, Lockie Rogers, Gus Collins, Otto Gerber coxing that crew. Sydney Boys High, Ethan Wilkinson, Alexander Lau, Andrew Gu, Jun Shim, Gabriel Sanzang, Max McLeod, Rory Zhang, Roman Samsonov, Thomas Zhang is the cox there. St. Joseph's lane 7, Lewis Benuska, Kaiser Knevitz, Thomas Curran, Christian Tripolone, George Ball, Fred O'Hara, River Phelps, Joseph Lane and Jonathan Yates coxing that. Shaw, lane 8, Toby Crowther, George Scammell, Harry Faulkner, Ben McCutcheon, Henry Roxburgh, Sam Bowman, Luke Robinson, Oliver Paris and coxed by Will Gandhi. And Sydney Grammar in lane 9, Harry Snow, Harry Lee, Daniel Hall, Joe Lanigan, Kai Holland, Will Dalton, William Stumbles, James Wagner, coxed by Ian Breera. And as those crews look to be coming close to the 1K there, through the 500, St. Ignatius do have the lead back to Shaw and then St. Joseph's. These are fast crews. This is a fast field this year. And then it's back to Scots, Kings, Newington, Sydney Boys High, and Sydney Grammar potentially. And as we look to be coming through the 1K here, conditions are again flattening out. It was quite windy earlier in the 4s, but it's a little bit flatter now for these 8s as they come down the course. That Riverview crew out in front with a 2:53. Shaw in second. Back to St. Joseph's, Scots, Kings, and Newington there as well. So it's a tight field, a tight tussle between really 2nd through to 5th. And back to Sydney Boys High there as well. It looks like Sydney Grammar potentially a non-starter in this race as well. There looks to be no one in lane 9. So again, the Schoolboy 8 division, these are the school's top rowers across the board. Most of these looking for potential head of the river wins. Shaw have been the field leader for quite a lot of this race through the year. And as we come through the 1500, it looks like Riverview may be holding on to a lead. Looks like they probably jumped them out of the start and trying to hold on to what they can through the 1500 here. Shaw on the close side, Riverview out in the middle of the course. St Joseph's pushing through Shaw there as well. It's going to be a tight tussle here as we come through the last 500. Riverview holding the lead. Shaw have closed the gap by about a second. Opened up on St Joseph's, Kings and Scots. Then we go back to Newington. And then back in the field will be Sydney Boys High. It's a tight tussle as they come down the course here. Sure of about a second of work to do. Let's see if they can get it done. They're going to have to increase their rate of striking early. And it looks like they're starting to build that now as we come through the last 250 metres. That Riverview crew just trying to hold on to that lead. They've also increased their rate of striking. Both crews rowing long strokes. Using these flat conditions to the best of their ability. Looks like Shaw keep opening up on the rest of the field. But it is going to be that tussle for first and second between St Ignatius and Shaw. This is tight to call. This is pretty hard. Looks like Shaw rowing a little bit longer than the Review crew potentially at the moment. Review potentially shortening up slightly as it looks like Shaw may have them here. It's hard to tell with the angle given how far apart the crews are, but it is a tight tussle as they come through the last little bit here. The last 100 metres, Coxon's going to be asking for more from their crews. Tight tussle, it's a difficult battle. Shaw trying to get the last little bit. But it looks like it will be St Ignatius through the line just by about half a canvas. It's gone to a photo finish officially, but I think that St Ignatius may have the field there. Kings have come through St Joseph's for third. St Joseph's in fourth, Scots in fifth, back to Newington in sixth, and Sydney Boys High in seventh. We'll have a short intermission between the racing, and back after that will be Glenn Bates to lead you through the second half of the racing.
turn the PA on. I didn't even pick it.
Oh, no, that's okay. We got it sorted, though. All good.
All right, here we are with the second round of racing underway. We are halfway through, or just past the halfway mark, with the 10 4th 8. And again, we see that battle between Riverview and Shaw belting out here. Looks like this time the Riverview 4th Year 10 8 haven't left too much to chance here by establishing a pretty strong lead through that 1,000-metre mark. Whilst we know we have crew changes and various bits and pieces between racing, this combination most certainly looks very strong. They've got their beat up, they're staying in time, doing a very good job. As we can see, those crews have come through the 1,500 metre mark now, and Riverview again have stretched that lead out even further. Whilst the Shaw boys are doing a great job in their race, they've got a little bit of work to do if they're going to try to move with these guys over the final month of the season. And as they come into the final 250 metres here, we can see that Review boat doing a fantastic job. An outstanding result for these young men from Lane Cove. Well done. Great rowing, great form, a great time. And look at them just pushing even now. Whilst they don't need to secure the victory, they are pushing through that final, knowing that they're going to have a tight race on their hands come March. Well done, gentlemen. Well done. Great race. We pan back to the Shaw boat here. They've had a stroke seat change for the second race in this one, giving a younger, less experienced rower an opportunity to experience what stroking a boat is all about. I look down there, I can see, I believe it is an outstanding effort there, gentlemen. Well done. We'd just like to invite that review crew to come over to the podium. They can receive their medals if they come around. If not, they can always come back and collect them from the tower. Well, we're truly underway in the Schoolboy Year 10 third 8 now. Just 500 metres gone. We've got Shaw out in the front. And again, Review just 1 second behind. This should turn out to be another great duel down the course. Scott's in third place at the moment, 6 seconds back. Sydney Grammar in fourth and Kings sitting in fifth position. We can see the crews have just crossed over the 1,000-metre mark here. We've got Shaw leading through that stage. They've stretched their lead out over the Review crew now to almost a boat length. It's probably 2.5 seconds there. Scots have dropped back there, but they're locking down third place. They haven't got it all their own way because Grammar and Kings are pressuring on them as well. But as they come through this third 500, will we see the lead change? Will we see Shaw push out? Or will we see Riverview mount a comeback? At the moment, the stroke rate is about the same in both boats. Let's just see how this plays out over the middle stages of this race. This is roughly where Riverview mounted a bit of a charge on the Shaw boat last time. Whether Shaw now have learnt from that, we'll see. The race is definitely on this side of the course here in lanes 7 and 8. And as they've come through the 1,500 metre mark, it does look like Riverview have swung that lead around to come through in 5 minutes and 4 seconds, just 0.07 of a second ahead of the Shaw crew. This is going to be a great barn burner coming down the last 500 metres here. We'll see who can push their boat out in front. Riverview most certainly have the momentum at the moment. Can Shaw push back? Well, it's pretty close here. I would say that View have just started to push their bow further ahead, but it wouldn't be much in it. Most certainly a good final 250 metres could see Shaw take this win here. Very tight racing indeed. Riverview have just brought their rating up. Let's see if Shaw respond. Will Hadfield in the stroke seat. What will he do? Will he take charge of this situation? Let's see how this plays out. Riverview with all the momentum at the moment. Can Shaw respond? It's coming down to the last 150 metres. An outstanding race for such young oarsmen in their early 2K racing history. It definitely has Riverview with the momentum here. Shaw trying to push back. Have they got anything in them? Can they lift for the last 50 metres? Very tight indeed. It will be the crew from Riverview taking the win. Second place to the Shaw crew. Just 1 second in that. These crews did not break contact with each other at any stage through the racing. That crew from Shaw is coached by George Chapman, and the crew from Riverview is coached by Timothy Seacole. And here we are. We have the Scots crew coming over in third place. They've done a great job to push away from Kings and Grammar to secure that last place on the podium.
Followed by Shaw, just under a boat length now. So they're still maintaining contact with Shaw crew. Like we saw in the other race, we saw both the first
overlapping each other for the majority of the course. Let's see if that happens here now. We can see as we come through to the 1500 metre mark, we've got Riverview leading. They're crossing the line now at the 15, and we have just a fraction of clear water now to the Schoolboy. Okay, 4-second margin there. So Riverview have done a great job to stretch out through that third 500, but can Shaw make a comeback? We have that Shaw crew is stroked by Harry Rawshine. Harry has joined the school from Canberra Grammar, and I know he's enjoying his time in the boarding house as well. Must be, very big move to come to Sydney and then go into the boarding house there, but he's really blended well in with the Shaw boys, and I know he's enjoying his time, enjoying the change of scenery. Thinking this third 500 now, you can see it's still Riverview and Shaw pushing out. I would say that Riverview have edged their lead out further. I can see that final 250 of the year 10, second 8 coming down. Through the stage of this race, it was very tight between Riverview and Shaw. I don't know if that is still the case. It looks very tight again. Hopefully we see another situation where we've got two crews overlapping as they cross the line. At the 1500 metre mark, it was a 4-second margin, so just clear water, but we'll see if that has actually changed now. Here's the Riverview boat, looking nice and flat, very direct. And here comes the Shaw crew, stroked by Harry Rawshine. Have they got it in them to push up onto the Riverview boat here? It will be a win to Riverview. And that will be followed by the Shaw crew in second place. Just over a boat length behind, then back to Kings in third, and Scots will push through to claim fourth. And we've got Joey's on this side of the course here now. They've locked down fifth position. Sydney Grammar and Newington fighting it out for the last two positions, but it will be Grammar in lane 5 there, taking the 6th spot on the in the proceedings, and Newington coming in 7th position. So the Year 8 quad racing back in Sydney saw a very good battle emerge between Shaw and Joey's on their side of the draw, and on the other side it was Kings and Riverview. So the Year 8 races, it looked like Shaw claimed the majority of the wins in their races, which is great to see. And then on the other side of the draw, it was Riverview, except for a very tight finish in the first Year 8 quad, where a previously undefeated Riverview crew got beaten by the King's School. So it was a great result. It would have been a great race. And I'm sure that'll open up some great rivalry between those two crews as the season bears on. Obviously, we move towards one more of our divisional races down in Sydney, and then we go into what is a final where the lane draw is decided, or the divisions are decided on the point score to date. So the Year 8 quad division back down in Sydney, also competing at the Shore Regatta. It was quite a good spectacle from what I have been led to believe, and the weather has behaved itself. The Year 9 quads have also finished down there as well, and we'll go through their results shortly. We've got the Year 10 first 8. The first 500 has already been completed. It is Riverview again, now with Scots in second place. A much improved Scots over the last few weeks. They have come from the second half of the field at the start of the season back in term 4 to now being right up pushing the faster crews in this division. This was a very tight race in the first race, and we'll see where this ends up now. And that year 10 first 8 race has come through the 1,000-metre mark. It is still Review out in the lead, but it was still Scots pushing through. So this could be a very interesting race. Let's see if the crew from the east can rise up through this second 1,000 and see what they can do against what has been a very dominant Review crew. We did see in Term 4 the Kings crew was the pace of this division. That is not the case now at the moment. We've seen Review over recent weeks definitely push their boat forward. This Review crew looking very strong, very dominant, very good rhythm, very flat, very direct. Have they got what it takes to work through this third 500? We'll see in a moment as they approach that mark now. Let's see now as they come through the 1,500 metre mark. Review first, and Joey's have actually moved up into second place with Scots in third, Kings in fourth, Newington fifth, and it will be the Shore boat in sixth position. Again, very tight field though, not a lot of seconds separating first and sixth here. This could be one of the big races of the day when we get to the 21st of March. Not much in this at all. I would say this is a very open field moving forward. All right, we're coming into that final 500 here. This is a very tight race. And look, Review have done the work. They have bragging rights coming into this final 500, but there is definitely a challenge mounting from the far side where Scots and Joeys are using each other to push forward here. Review in a little bit of a race on their own on this side. We'll see if that has any bearing on the final placings. But this is turning into a great division, a great race, very tight. First 6 positions will have a blanket being able to be thrown over them. But it looks like Review, maybe they've done enough, who knows, we'll see as they come under the finish tower here. It is Review in front, from Joey's, back to Scots. And it will be View claiming the win, Joey's in second, Scots in third, Kings in fourth, Newington in fifth position. The men from Shore in sixth. And we go back to Sydney Grammar in their distinctive M-Packer. They will finish from lane 8. They will finish 7th. And then we go back to Sydney Boys High. Again, doing a great job out there. And they will finish in 8th position. Let's get a round of applause for the Sydney Boys High crew here as they come across the line. Outstanding work. Well done, gentlemen. Well done. We have a start in the Schoolboy third senior 8 now. We're through the 500. It is Review out in the lead, followed by Shore, followed by Review 2, followed by Joey's 1, Kings. And great again to see Sydney Boys High 1 and 2 out there. Great depth. George Barris must be very happy with the way the program is heading and the direction it's taking. Outstanding. This race so far is following a similar pattern to what we've seen in the first round of racing today, with Review establishing a lead. Joey's establishing themselves, Shaw establishing themselves well in second place, but always very tight with that second Review combination. We have the leading crew of Review being Tommy Burton, Alexander, Raymond Nash, Ben Walker, Jack Whitson, Charlie Forshaw, Oliver Tucker, Patrick Cleary, Max Remus, Charlie Vecchio, and David Hogan coaching. Now, David has coached the third Senior 8 for many years now at Review. He has many Head of the River victories, and one of the better races from last Head of the River was that third 8 last year, where the Shaw crew and the Review crew went toe-to-toe for pretty much the whole 2Ks with only a second separating. Will we see the same this year? Who knows? But at the moment, it does look like that Review crew has stretched their lead out. They're at the 1,000-metre mark here, 8 seconds ahead of the second place, which is the Shaw combination. Review 2 just on the heels of Shaw 1. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out through the second stages. Back to Joey's, back to Kings, back to the Sydney Boys high combinations after that. And we're coming up to the 1,500 metre mark here. Again, Review just edging out further again. They're doing a great job out there. A crew that wouldn't look out of place in high divisions perhaps, but they're doing a very good job. With Shaw crew pushing away now from Riverview 2. Joey's 1 have actually moved into the equation for the third position. So that lead looks like it's consolidated now. We've got just a double-digit lead there from first to second, and looks like Shaw maybe have put a length or close to a length on Joey's 1 and Review 2. Will we see any shifts and changes in there over the final 500? I'm not sure. Maybe Joey's 1 and Review 2 might have a little bit of a stoush there in the final stages. It'll be up to who can lift the best or keep themselves together through that final stage. You can see Shaw number 1 on this side of the course doing a great job. Kings right over on this side, not to be discredited here or discounted, they're doing a great job as well. There's a very clean looking Shaw Review crew, Review number 1, doing a fantastic job to close out this race. There we go. Review number 1 combination heading across the line now. And back to the Shaw crew, who are just going to have to fight off a little bit of a late challenge there from Joey's number 1. I'm sure they've got it in them to hold that position down. It looks like Joey's number 1 did push back a little bit on them through that final 500. Yeah, back to Joey's, back to Review number 2. And we have the Kings combination coming in now in 5th position. And we'll go back to the 2 Sydney High combinations. We have Sydney Boys High here, combination number 1 coming across the line. Outstanding work. And then we see the second combination there coming into the final 50 metres. If we go down the course, race number 18 has made a start. As we saw, we know that we had this racing consolidate into one straight race. And it looks like Kings number 1 have scratched out in lane 3. So there will be no Kings 4-4 racing in the second round of racing here. Just a little reminder to all those on bikes. It is a requirement that we are wearing helmets. We did have a few incidences last weekend at the state championships when that bike path was very busy of people coming off their bikes and ending up in a bad way. So just a little reminder to make sure you're wearing a helmet. It can be quite a hard thing. I know I struggle with it if I'm riding a bike and watching racing at the same time to make sure you're not running into someone. So just make sure that we're abiding by the rules there and wearing helmets. Okay, this school 4th race is well and truly underway here. We have Riverview leading out, but not far back was the 4th combination from Shaw. Again, one of those situations where we do have a lot of distance between the leading 2 crews, with the Shaw crew in lane 8. And I know it's only lane 5, but it does feel like they are a little bit separated in this. Should be a nice tight tussle here, but we'll get a confirmation of that as they cross the 1,500 metre mark. It does look like it's still Review out in front, getting up and staying on top of the work. And it is the Shaw combination just a length back as they come across the 1,500 metre mark. And that Shaw combination had a much improved performance in the first race, and they look like they're going on with that again here in the second race. Whilst they are a length down, it's a lot better than where they have been in previous regattas. And it does look like it will be just a Shaw Review battle here, and we'll see who. We'll go back and have a look and see who's going to lock down that 3rd position. The valuable 3rd position comes for the head of the River Day to make sure they get on the podium. It does look like Joey's have that, with Scott's coming in 4th position, but still a few lengths back off that 3rd spot. And here we go, as we come down to the final stages. Review looking pretty good here, looking very direct and very clean with their blade work. Shaw mounting a bit of a challenge here as they see the red boys come through, so their rate has gone up. But it looks like Review may have responded as well. So we'll just see how this plays out over the dying stages. You can see that Ignatius combination, Thomas Ball, Hugh McWilliam, Raf Tui, William Brown, Thomas Brendan in the coxswain seat, coached by Sarah Dew. Just slightly pulling away from the Binny Smith Fuses Commonarchus combination. Well, actually, that is not the correct combination, because we have had some seat changes there, so I can see Big Xavier in the stroke seat doing a great job. That's the first time he's ever stroked a crew at this regatta. So it's a win to Review and a much improved performance from the Shaw combination to finish in 2nd place. Back to St Joseph's, who will lock down that last podium position. Again, just a little reminder to Review, if they want to come and collect their medals on the podium, that would be fantastic. We have the Scots crew coming in 4th position. And then we go back to the Newington combination, who will lock down 5th. And we see the Sydney Boys High crew as well. They are coming through there. They will finish in 6th position. And as promised, we were going to always try to run to time here. The third 4 is on the track. Looking down the line or down the course now. We definitely have the review crew out in the lead as they cross the 1,000-metre mark. Just got a little issue there with the timing, but we'll get that sorted out. It's review in the lead, then Shaw, back to Scott's, back to Joey's, back to King's through that first 1,000 metres. Let's have a round of applause for the Scots 4th 4 coming over the line now. It was a great effort there, fellas. Well done. And again, looking back down the course there, we'll see how that race has progressed. But it was at the middle stages a review Shaw Scots leading 3. We'll see if that is the case once they cross the 1,500 metre mark. They come through the 1,500 metre mark. It is that Riverview 3rd 4 doing a fantastic job. They've got a reasonable lead now on the field, but it is Shaw sitting in 2nd place. But then the Scots crew now pushing through. The Scots crew just a bow ball back off the Shaw boat. They're pushing through for 2nd place. You should see how that race develops over the remaining 500 metres. We also have the Kings combination 10 seconds back in 4th, and a very tight margin between Joey's and Newington battling it out for 5th and 6th on different sides of the course, no doubt. Again, we see that issue with separation across the field. We've got 2nd and 3rd separated by a lot of different lanes. We also have 4th and 5th separated by the whole course, basically, making it quite a challenging environment to race in. Coxswains are worth their gold here because they're the ones that connect the crew to the race. So we need them making sure they're calling constantly where the opposition is, and the crew just has to have that confidence and faith in their jockeys to make sure that they're listening and believe where they are. As we look down the course here, we can see it's still that review combination. It does look like Shaw have stepped up a little bit here, and obviously the coxswain there has done a great job in guiding his crew away from the Scots challenge, but Scots are now pushing back. So it'll be interesting to see where this finishes here, but it's definitely the review boat looking very strong. These boys came 3rd at the New South Wales State Championships in the Championship Schoolboy 4, so they've got a very well-credentialed crew and a very well-coached crew as well. And here comes Shaw now, locking in 2nd place well, looking very good as they come over the line. And they've seen off the challenge by Scots, and Scots doing a great job to lock in 3rd. Back to the Kings combination. They will secure 4th position. Back to Joey's on this side of the line of the course, who have locked in 5th. And over to Newington in 6th position. Down the course there, we can see the Grammar crew finishing well. So you got their rate right up, which is fantastic to see as they cross into the Red Boys. And here comes Sydney Grammar now in the final stages. Well done, fellas. A round of applause, please, for the Grammar third four. All right, we're well and truly underway in the second four event here, and as we look down the lanes, it looks again like a Review Shore battle in the after the first 500 or first 1,000 metres. It looks like Review have just a half a length boat lead over the Shore combination. This is going to be, this was in the first round of racing, one of the races of the day as well. We have a great battle here, 1,500 metres, and looks like Shore have closed the gap slightly on the St Ignatius crew. It is just still under half a length, and this could be a great finish. Unfortunately, again, we've seen the crews drawn, obviously, a few lanes apart. That can make it quite challenging. As I said before, we need to make sure our coxswains are connecting our crews to the race in this sort of situation. You can see Review have responded to the pressure. Their rate has come up, but we are seeing so the Shore combination put a nice big step on. So we'll see if that can overturn that margin through the last 500 metres. This is turning into a very good race here. Sitting in third position is the Joey's combination still, but it is Shore and Review going toe-to-toe here. Who will get the chocolates? You can see the Shore boat lifting. Review now responding. Very good racing indeed. Very good racing. Very tight. Look at the rate coming up. Rate's coming up. Boys, got to keep your eyes in the boat. Keep your focus. It is still Review just in front. Shore pushing. Shore pushing. Review. Shore. Review. Shore. This is going to be a photo. No idea. No idea. But great race. Okay, that fantastic two sets of races from both those crews. We have Joey's in third. Back to the Scots combination. That will finish in the fourth position. Then we have the Newington crew over on the far side. We'll have to wait and see what the photo says there. That's pretty deceptive. And obviously the white buoy line isn't exactly straight either, so we can't just go off our naked eye. There is a wire line there that the boat race judges are looking through. Pressure's on down there. Make sure you get it right. And we'll see what comes of that. The photo is being processed now, so we'll be able to see that result very soon. That second 4 from Shaw, coached by Jack Message, has definitely improved over the last few weeks. There's been a few little crew changes and various bits and pieces between the 1 and 2 4. The Review combination finishing second at the state champ, so they're a very well-credentialed crew and a great crew to watch row. It's a credit to the coaching staff at Review. Their 4s are looking very stylish this year. We are underway in the first 4, while we're waiting for our photo finish in the second 4. Oh, that result has just come through. It was St. Ignatius in the first 4. In the second 4, 6:54, and just 0.24 of a second back to the Shaw second 4. So a brilliant finish from such young oarsmen. Outstanding work, both those crews. First 4 is underway. We get through the 1,000-metre mark. It is Review again leading the way with Shaw in second place. Then back to Scott's. Then back to Joey's, Newington, Grammar, High, and well, it says here there's 2 Grammar crews, but I don't think that would be the case. But some great racing here through the first 1,000 metres. This Review crew, obviously after winning the state titles last week, quite a well-credentialed crew, and they've done a great job all year, racing very well from the front. We'll see as they come through the next stages here, through the 1,500-metre mark. We'll get a good indication of what sort of lead they've been able to establish. But their beat is up. They're staying on top of the work. They're looking very direct through the front turn. A lot of great hallmarks there of a great crew. So it is that Review boat out in the lead. Shaw have pushed back a little bit, just under 5 seconds behind, which is about a length and a half. Then back to Scott's again, about a length and a half back to them. So there is clear water between these 3 crews, but the race by all means is not over. So we're seeing some great rowing here through the dying stages of the regatta into the third last event. Review out in front. Nice situation developed here in this regatta, in this race, where the 3 leading crews are all over on this side of the course. So they've all got an eye on each other. Coxswains can just keep that focus now on their calls and strategy and keeping the direction rather than having to worry about connecting the crew too much to the opposition. There's that Review boat looking very strong out in front. Shaw definitely challenging. Will Reid in the stroke seat doing everything he can to claw that margin in, and we'll see if he's been successful with his crew to clawing that margin back to Review. The Scots combination having a great second half here as well, definitely pushing through, and that'll be helping Shaw as well close that margin. It is that that Review crew out in front here now doing a great job. Great job. They've done that all year. Controlled the pace, controlled the tempo, controlled the race well, and they're going to lock in that first position. Shaw coming up with a spirited final 50 metres here to try to close that margin. We'll see if they've been successful. That is a win to Review, and just still similar margin there back to Shaw, then back to Scott's. So there was a great race from all 3 crews there, definitely keeping each other on. 6:49 was a very good time in the first 4 in these conditions as well, so well done to all. Joey's locking in that 4th position, then back to Newington, then back to Grammar, with Sydney High coming here now. Well, there is 2 Grammar crews in there, so the Grammar second combination will finish in 8th position. Sydney High will take that 7th spot. We have a start in the second 8. This event had a very exciting finish in the previous round of racing. with Joey's claiming a win just on the line in the last 50 metres over the Shaw combination. Those two crews have had a great battle so far this season. Shaw having the early success in Term 4, and Joey's rising after the January camp period to be the dominant combination through the first few races, although that margin has closed down a little here. So in the second 8 final, we've come through the first 500. Actually can't see Joey's on the list here anywhere, so maybe there has been a late withdrawal. I'll get some confirmation if they actually started, but it is the Shaw combination out in the lead, with Riverview second 8 a length back here after 500 metres. So Shaw, Riverview, Kings, Newington in that order. Very tight between Kings and Newington, just 1 second separating those two crews. And Matthew Georetta has moved into the stroke seat this week. And we'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate Ollie Smith on the arrival of his new son, entering fatherhood for the first time. He will, I'm sure, rapidly age over the next 10 years. His crew right now, which I'm sure he's watching on the live stream, and I'm sure he'll hate me mentioning that as well, but it is his crew that's out in the lead at the moment. There's a 5-second lead there established over the 1,000-metre mark. We've come through just over that 3-minute barrier as well. So not a bad pace for the first 1K from the Shaw crew. And we go back to that review boat. It is that Shaw crew looking very strong out in the front position there at the moment. That is the crew of Austin Hamilton, Micah Minchin, Alex Rogan, Lockie McIntosh, Ollie Kosh, Liam Kennedy, Al Curry, Matthew Georetta and Oscar Miller coxing. And again, as I said before, coached by Oliver Smith. They are definitely dictating the terms of this race at this stage. Although one thing that we have seen way too often is that spirited Riverview second 1,000. So they wouldn't be keeping their eyes off those guys at all. You can see there the Riverview boat establishing that second position. Doing a fantastic job out there. As they come across the 1,500 metre mark, we'll just see how the other placings are establishing themselves. We have the Newington combination pushing now up onto the Riverview, then followed by Scots, then Kings. And it will be, it's very tight here between Sydney Boys High and Sydney Grammar. So Sydney Boys High just sitting 0.7 of a second in front of Sydney Grammar in 6th position. So there'll be a very exciting final 500 metres there for those boys. Will Newington have a little bit of a push here to close that margin on Riverview? Who knows? Riverview have responded here and are looking to push off Newington. A little bit of a race occurring on this side of the course, which is always good. And then we can see that Shaw boat still striding out in front. Will they hold that margin? Will they extend that margin? Let's just see how this plays out. The rate is coming up as they hit the red buoys. Very strong. Matthew Georetta moving into the stroke seat this week. A little master stroke from Ollie Smith. We saw a very exciting race with Joey's in the first one, and this one looks like a very dominant performance from Shaw. Outstanding. As they cross the line here now. Excellent. Riverview have done what it takes to lock in that third position and push off the Newington crew. And they cross the line now. And then we go back, and it looks like a little bit of a tussle between Scots and Newington, but it will be Newington who take the half-length lead to secure third position. Right back to the King's School there to lock in 5th. And a great little battle there with Sydney High and Grammar. It is Sydney High that will claim that 7th position, then back to Sydney Grammar. Great to see the water splashing from the High boys. Obviously very happy to have that result and a great race from them. We are underway in the first 8. We saw a very strong Review crew take a very early lead in this event in the first round of racing, with a very tight finish with Shaw coming back through the second 1,000. I would imagine that coach Jason Baker has read the riot act about the first 500 to his crew, and they're definitely a lot tighter in the first 500 now. So 0.81 of a second back. So Review leading through the first 5, 0.81 of a second back to Shaw, 1.5 seconds back to Scott's, then back to Newington. So it's very tight, as it should be in the first 8th race through that first 500 metres. There's been much said about the middle 1,000 tempo of the Shaw crew. Recently, they have allowed crews a little bit of a start on them. I know that is one thing that they're very conscious about trying to do better. And they will be definitely looking to look at that through the final 3 weeks of the season. We're coming up to the 1,000 metre mark. We'll just see what's happening with those placings here. Haven't really got a true angle of the course yet. It does look like it's a Review and Shaw edging away from the field a little here. Might be just Review just in front here as we hit the 1,000 metre mark, but it wouldn't be by much. In fact, it might now have just swung the other way, with the Shaw crew edging out in front now, taking a canvas lead over the 1,000 metre. And back to Scott's College, doing a fantastic job there. Just 0.74 of a second back from Review. So another contender pushing up in this category. We've seen much improved performances in the Scott's shed over the last 2 or 3 weeks, with the rise of their junior 8 doing quite well, and also their first 8 starting to push through as well. Nice to see the depth of the program is there, with the 4s being more competitive. We're into that second 1,000 now, and we'll see what that lead, or how that lead and that race develops. I understand that the Grammar first 8 did not start. There was an incident in the boat park there with a bit of a first aid scenario, which is unfortunate for those boys. They're coached by an ex-Schoolboy, actually, and captain of boats, John Kenny. And see the crews coming up to the 1,500 metre mark. We'll just see what those margins have done. Have Scott's launched an attack? Have they taken Review? We will know a little more as they cross the line here. Definitely looks like a very tight race there in those top 3 positions. I would say that Shaw have pushed to 1/4 to 1/3 of a length lead, but there's not much in it. There is not much in it at all. Scott's have pushed up onto Review, the winners of the first round of racing. So it is Shaw coming across the 1,500 metre mark in 4:29, 1.3 seconds in front of St Ignatius, 0.22 of a second in front of Scott's. So not much in that at all. Back to St Joseph's, who are 4 seconds back from the Scott's combination, and then very tight between Joey's and King's. This is a very tight race. A little bit like what we've seen in some of the racing to date in the second 8 race as well. So very tight field. We have a field where anyone really can win. We've got Scott's doing a great job in the middle of the course. We've got Review, who I think Scott's have overtaken here now, but it's very hard to tell on this line. And we have Shaw over on the far side. Have they got what it takes to go one step better, or will Scott's and Review take them? But I can see Review responding now and pushing back in front of Scott's. Definitely a little charge to the line. This is a very tight race. Rate is up. Heads are in the boat. Coxon screaming. Who is going to take the win here? Shaw is just in front. Review in second. Shaw, Riverview. It's getting tight, but it will be the Shaw crew to take the win. Back to Review. Then back to Scott's. Scott's just finding that pace in that last 100 metres, maybe a little too tight. Joey's just taking Newington on the line, although that might have to be a photo. And then Kings coming through in 6th position. So looking at the official results here, or unofficial results, I don't know if they've been ticked off yet, but we had Shaw in first. 0.89 of a second in front of Riverview. Then back to Scott's, 2.53 seconds back. Back to Joey's. Newington just in front of Kings. Joey's just in front of Newington. Back to Kings, back to Sydney Boys High. Some really great racing there, guys. Outstanding effort. This category is well and truly open. Okay, there is a lot of different boats here. All have bragging rights and should feel confident about how they're going to go on the 21st of March. A big thank you to all our volunteers for helping with the regatta today. I hope everyone has a safe trip home, and thank you for all attending.